My father always told me one thing. Son, the world is cruel to weak men. I didn't understand what he meant, until the day I had to beg the same darkness I ran away from, to save the only woman I ever loved. My name is Charlie Beckstrom, billionaire heir, raised in luxury, schooled with the elite, driven to class in a Rolls-Royce. And yet, my life didn't truly begin until the night I walked into a small restaurant. If you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button so you won't miss stories like this. Stories of love, power, darkness, and the choices that make us who we are. This is my story. I grew up in a world most people can't imagine. Marble floors, private jets, armed drivers. Security so tight it felt like living inside a vault. Back then, I didn't question anything. I was just a boy, a quiet, humble boy, raised by the gentlest woman God ever created. My mother, Sarah Beckstrom. She was warm and kind. She treated staff like family, strangers like friends. She had this softness that could calm a storm. And then cancer took her. I was shattered. The world lost color for a long time. My father, Andrew Beckstrom, changed too. He became harder and colder, more distant, like he was carrying a secret too heavy to share. Growing up, I always wondered why my mom avoided the family business. Why she stayed away from meetings, why she never talked about the empire I was supposed to inherit. Later, I will learn exactly why. I studied business at the best schools in Miami. Graduated at the top of my class. Perfect soldier for a billionaire dynasty. And I was ready. Or so I thought. One afternoon, my father called me into his private office. And for the first time in my life, he locked the door behind us. Sit, Charlie. You're old enough now. I didn't know it then, but that meeting would change my entire life. He told me everything. The hotels was a cover. The resorts, a front. The private clubs, money laundering hubs. And behind all of it was a world I never imagined. Drugs, cash cleaning, prostitution rackets. Darkness layered under gold. I felt sick. My mother, she avoided the business because she didn't want this for me. She wanted me clean, free human. My father watched my face. You are my son, Charlie. This empire will be yours. I swallowed hard. Dad, I won't do this. He was disappointed but calm. Your mother made me promise to let you choose. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And just like that, I walked out, thinking I had escaped the darkness. I had no idea how wrong I was. I wanted to build my own life, earn my place, stand on my own feet, not my father's empire. But when your last name is Beckstrom, nobody believes you want a real job. 20 applications, 20 suspicions. Is this a test? Is your father buying the company? Why would a billionaire heir apply here? I kept pushing. And finally, a top sales firm took a chance on me. From day one, I worked like a man possessed. I learned to pitch, to hustle, to negotiate, the one skill my father taught me with pride. I became the top salesman, then the best in the region. And to celebrate, I took my entire department out to dinner, any restaurant they wanted. My best friend there, Dan, black, 32, brilliant, loyal, chose a small local restaurant. And that decision changed everything. The restaurant was called Sarah's Kitchen. The irony of the name, my mother's name, felt like fate announcing itself. It was small, unpretentious, tucked into a neighborhood that wealthy people usually avoided. But the moment we walked in, I felt something. A warmth, an authenticity, a sense that something important was about to happen. Then I saw her. Michelle was in the kitchen, visible through the service window. 20 years old, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with makeup or expensive clothes. She moved through the kitchen like a dancer, completely focused, every movement purposeful and graceful. That's my cousin, Dan said, noticing me staring. Michelle? She's an orphan. Been running this place since she was 18 after her mom died. Inherited the restaurant and her mom's gift for cooking. The food that came out was transcendent. Not just delicious, though it was extraordinary, but made with obvious love. Every dish told a story. I couldn't stop watching her. The way she tasted sauces. The way she smiled when a dish came out perfectly. The way her whole face lit up when she talked to customers about the food. I came back the next day, alone. Ordered something different, sat in the corner, watched her work. Day 3, she came to my table herself. "You look too sophisticated for this neighborhood," she said, a slight smile playing on her lips. "What keeps bringing you back?" "Your cooking," I said honestly. "It is incredible. In this place, it's peaceful, real." We started talking, really talking. She told me about her parents, how they died within 2 years of each other, leaving her the restaurant and nothing else. How cooking saved her from grief, gave her purpose, connected her to her mother's memory. Her eyes literally glowed when she talked about food. About flavors and techniques and the joy of creating something that nourished people. I stayed until closing, helped her clean up, and knew with absolute certainty that I was falling in love. "Teach me to cook," I blurted out one evening. She laughed. "You, Mr. Rolls-Royce? I want to learn from you." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, but I'm not taking your money. This is for fun." Every Saturday became sacred. She'd teach me recipes, guide my hands through techniques, laugh at my mistakes. And I was terrible at focusing because she was right there, so close, so beautiful, so completely herself. On our 4th Saturday, while making pasta from scratch, the tension between us became impossible to ignore. Our hands touched while kneading dough, and neither of us pulled away. We looked at each other, and the entire world narrowed to just that moment. We kissed passionately. And everything changed. Happiness, I've learned, is often just the prologue to tragedy. I started noticing them after our 3rd date. Men, rough-looking, expensive watches, cheap souls. They'd show up at Michelle's restaurant, make demands, leave her shaking. The first time, she waved me off. "Don't worry about it. Just business stuff." The second time, I arrived to find them surrounding her, one of them grabbing her arm hard enough to leave bruises. I saw red, started forward, ready to tear them apart. Michelle's eyes caught mine. She shook her head desperately. "Don't." When they left, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Tell me what's going on. Right now." The story came out in broken pieces. Her father, before he died, had borrowed money from a drug lord to cover medical bills for her mother's cancer treatment. $350,000. With interest, it had ballooned to $400,000. Michelle had been trying to pay it back while keeping the restaurant afloat, paying for culinary school, surviving. She was drowning. "His name is Carlitos Ricardo Parias," she said quietly. "Mexican cartel. Very dangerous. And lately he's been suggesting that maybe I could pay off the debt in other ways." The way she said it made my blood freeze. "How much total?" I asked. $400,000 with the interest. "Set up a meeting. I'll pay everything." "Charlie, please no." "Michelle." I took her face in my hands. "Let me do this, please." We argued, but she finally agreed it would be a loan. We both knew it was a lie. Carlitos Ricardo Parias was exactly what nightmares are made of. Tattoos covering every inch of visible skin. Eyes that had seen too much death and felt nothing about it anymore. A smile that promised violence. We met at one of his establishments. Michelle trembled beside me as I slid a briefcase across the table. 400,000, count it, her debt is settled. Carlitos didn't touch the money. Instead, he leaned back, studying Michelle like she was a piece of meat. "See, here's the thing," he said slowly, his accent thick. "I was thinking Michelle and I could work out a different arrangement. More personal." I stood. "The debt is paid. We're done." He laughed, but it was hollow. Finally, he counted the money with quick, practiced movements. When he finished, he looked at me with that terrible grin. "Pleasure doing business." His eyes never left Michelle. "I'll be seeing you around, princess." That night, I took Michelle to one of my father's apartments. Cooked for her. Held her. And that night, we made love. At dawn she slept in my arms, and I realized she had been a virgin. The innocence she still had, in a world this cruel, broke something in me. I promised myself I'd protect her always. We spent the weekend in a bubble of happiness. Cooking together, walking through the city, visiting museums, shopping. Monday I drove her to work feeling like the luckiest man alive. That feeling lasted until evening. Carlitos was there when I arrived. Sitting at a table, eating slowly, deliberately. The restaurant was silent in a way that screamed danger. Staff frozen. Customers gone. Michel behind the counter, pale and terrified. He finished his meal, stood, walked past me. As he did, he leaned in close. "Tell your bitch she caused me emotional distress and stress. I want compensation. Either more money or..." He smiled, "We can work something else out." When he left, Michel collapsed into my arms. I called Patrick that night after Michel fell asleep. "I need your help," I said. "Information on someone. Everything, operations, associates, weaknesses." "Who?" "Carlitos Ricardo Parias." Long pause. "That's Cartel Charlie. You sure about this?" "He's threatening Michel. He won't stop. Give me a few days." I hung up and stared at the ceiling. Then I made another call. The one I swore I'd never make. My father answered on the second ring. "Charlie? It's 2 a.m. I need your help." "What happened?" His voice changed instantly. Sharp, focused, dangerous. I told him everything. Michel, the debt, Carlitos, the threats. When I finished, there was silence. Then, "Bring her here tomorrow. To the main house. She'll stay with us where she's protected." "And Charlie?" His voice was cold now, the voice of Andrew Beckstrom, the man who built an empire on violence. "You did the right thing calling me. Family protects family." The next morning, I told Michel we were going to meet my father. "Your father?" "Charlie, I can't." "You can, and you have to, my love. He can protect you in ways I can't." The estate looked different through Michel's eyes. I saw her taking in the armed guards, the security measures, the obvious wealth. She was quiet, processing. My father met us in his study. He stood when we entered, and I saw him see her. Really see her. The way she held herself despite being terrified. The strength in her eyes. The quiet dignity. "Michel?" he said gently, so gently I almost didn't recognize his voice. "Charlie told me what you're facing. You'll stay here, protected, and no one will touch you, not while you're under my roof." "Mr. Beckstrom, I can't." "You can please, dear." He looked at me. "Charlie, we need to talk, alone." When Michel left the room, my father poured us both drinks. "You called me for help." "I did. You know what that means?" He looked at me steadily. "You walked away from this life. From the resources. The power. But now you need them." I met his eyes. "I know. The world is cruel, Charlie. Especially to men who try to be good. You can't protect her with clean hands. Not from someone like Carlitos." He moved closer. "I can make this problem disappear. Completely. But you need to understand what you're asking me to do." "I understand." "Do you?" His voice was hard now. "I'm going to have people hurt. Maybe killed. I'm going to use every dirty trick in my arsenal. And you're going to be complicit in it? You're going to have blood on your hands even if you don't pull the trigger." I thought about my mother. About her lessons on morality and kindness. About choosing light over darkness. But I also thought about Michel. About losing her to a monster because I was too proud to use the weapons my father was offering. "Do whatever you have to do," I said quietly. "Protect her, I cannot lose her." My father's expression was complicated, sad and proud simultaneously. "You're my son after all," he said, "birds of a feather." My father and Patrick worked in concert like a well-oiled machine. Within days, they had a complete picture of Carlitos's operation. "He is big but sloppy," Patrick explained, spreading files across the table. "Gotten cocky makes him vulnerable." I sat in these meetings now. Listened to discussions about eliminating threats, compromising officials, manipulating rivals. I'd crossed a line and there was no going back. My father was strategic. "We don't just scare him. We dismantle his entire operation. Make it look like internal betrayal. Feed information to the DEA through our contacts. Let law enforcement do most of the heavy lifting. And if that's not enough? I asked. My father's eyes were cold. Then we handle it ourselves. Over the next month, I watched my father's empire in action. It was terrifying and impressive in equal measure. Shipments got intercepted. Warehouses raided. Key lieutenants arrested with ironclad evidence. Carlitos' second-in-command got caught with enough product to guarantee life in prison. His accountant flipped, trading testimony for witness protection. But Carlitos himself remained free, and that meant Michelle was still in danger. I remember the night it came to a head. Patrick came to me with a file. "He's planning something," Patrick said. "Our intel says he's going to make a move on Michelle soon, maybe this week." "What do we do?" Patrick looked at me seriously. "Your father wants to know how far you're willing to go. Because we can arrange for Carlitos to have an accident. But that means crossing a line you can't uncross." I thought about Michelle. About the future we wanted to build. About children we might have someday. "Do it," I said. "I don't know the details." My father made sure of that. Plausible deniability, he called it. But 3 days later, news broke that Carlitos Ricardo Parias had died in a drug war shootout with a rival cartel. The investigation concluded it was cartel violence. Case closed. Patrick told me quietly, "He died knowing why." That's all I'll say. I should have felt relief. Instead I felt hollow. I'd become exactly what I swore I wouldn't. I'd used my father's resources, his methods, his darkness. I'd ordered a man's death. My mother's voice echoed in my head. "Who you are is determined by what you choose." I'd made my choice. My father found me on the balcony late that night, staring at the city lights. "You're having regrets," he said. It wasn't a question. I killed a man. You protected someone you love. There's a difference. Is there? I looked at him. I used your methods, your resources. I became you. No. His voice was firm. You're not me. You chose this only when you had no other option. You tried every legitimate path first. You resisted until the world forced your hand. He put a hand on my shoulder. "That's the difference between us, son. I chose this life when I had other options. You chose it only when it was the only way to protect someone innocent. Does that make me my father's son?" Undeniably yes. But here's what I've learned. My father wasn't a monster. He was a man born into hell who did what he had to do to survive. He clawed his way out of poverty and violence using the only tools the world gave him. And when I needed those same tools to protect someone innocent, I used them. The difference, the only difference, is that I tried to avoid it first. I exhausted every legitimate option. I held on to my principles until the very moment they became a luxury I couldn't afford. My mother gave me the gift of morality. My father gave me the tools to survive in a moral world. And maybe that's the real lesson. You need both. Patrick runs the family business now. My father has stepped back, spending time with his granddaughter, teaching her to be kind like her grandmother and strong like her grandfather. The empire continues, but I'm not part of it. Not officially. But I understand it now. I understand why it exists. I understand that the world is divided into those with power and those without, and sometimes the only way to protect the powerless is to become powerful yourself, even if that power is dark. Michelle's restaurant is thriving. Little Sarah is 3 now, beautiful and bright and kind. I kiss them both goodnight every evening in a house paid for with legitimate money earned through honest work. But I know the truth. I know that my family's safety is guaranteed not by locks and alarms, but by the shadow of my father's empire. By the knowledge that anyone who threatens us will face consequences that have nothing to do with law or justice. I live in the light, but I'm protected by the darkness. So am I my father's son? Did I become exactly what I tried to avoid? In some ways, yes. But I also became something else. A man who understands that morality is a luxury, that the world is cruel to the weak, that sometimes love requires you to embrace the very darkness you fear. My mother wanted me to have a choice. I made it. I chose to try to be good. And when the world punished me for that choice, I chose to survive. To protect, to do whatever was necessary. Birds of a feather flock together, they say. Blood calls to blood. Darkness follows darkness. Maybe they're right. Or maybe the real truth is simpler. We're all capable of anything when pushed far enough. The question isn't whether you'll cross lines, it's which lines and for whom. I crossed mine for love. For Michelle, for the future we're building for our daughter. My name is Charlie Beckstrom. I'm a businessman, a husband, a father, and I'm my father's son. And I've learned that sometimes, the only way to keep your hands clean is to never get them dirty in the first place. But if you wait too long, if you hesitate when someone you love is in danger, you learn that clean hands are worthless if they can't protect what matters. So I have blood on my hands. I have darkness in my soul. I carry the weight of choices that would have horrified my younger self. But Michelle is safe. Sarah is protected. And they sleep peacefully every night, never knowing the price that was paid for their security. With Carlitos gone, Michelle was safe. But I was different. She saw it immediately. The weight I carried. The darkness I'd touched. What did your father do? She asked one night. What he had to, I said quietly. What I asked him to. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't need to know details. But Charlie, you can't let this destroy who you are. You did what you had to do. Don't let it define you. I surprised her with a new restaurant. Better location, fully equipped, everything she dreamed of. It was my way of trying to create something good from all the darkness. Charlie, this is too much. Nothing is too much for you, my love. Let me do this. Let me create something beautiful for you. The restaurant thrived. Michelle's talent deserved a proper stage, and now she had it. I watched her bloom, become confident, hire staff, build a real business. And slowly I started to forgive myself. I started my own consulting firm, helping small businesses grow. Clean work. Honest money. I was building something legitimate, even if the path to get here had been soaked in blood. My relationship with my father evolved. I understood him now in a way I never had before. The impossible choices he'd faced. The way the world forces you to become someone you never wanted to be. We had dinner regularly. Talked honestly. He was proud of me, I realized. Not for joining his empire, but for trying to stay clean until I absolutely couldn't anymore. You held out longer than I did, he said once. That counts for something. I proposed to Michelle on the beach at sunset. Nothing fancy. Just me, her, and a ring that represented a future built on love despite the darkness we'd survived. She said yes before I finished asking. The wedding was small. Dan walked Michelle down the aisle. Patrick was my best man. My father sat in the front row and cried when Michelle said her vows. She reminds me of Sarah, he told me afterward. That same strength. That same goodness. You chose well. When Michelle got pregnant, I felt something shift inside me. Terror and joy in equal measure. I was going to be a father. And I was determined that my child would never face the choices I had. We named our daughter Sarah. People ask me if I regret my choices. Which ones? I always wonder. Rejecting my father's empire? Or accepting his help when I had no other option? The truth is complicated. I tried to be different. I tried to walk a clean path, build a legitimate life, stay away from the darkness I was born into. And for a while it worked. I had a job I was proud of. A woman I loved. A future that looked bright. But the world doesn't care about your moral intentions. It doesn't reward you for trying to be good. Sometimes, it punishes you for it. When Michelle's life was threatened, I learned something my mother never could have taught me. Love makes hypocrites of us all. We'll compromise any principle, cross any line, become anyone we need to become to protect the people we love. If this story made you think about what you'd be willing to do for the people you love, if it challenged your understanding of right and wrong, hit that like button and subscribe. Leave a comment telling me, where's your line? What would you do if the world forced you to choose between your principles and the people you love? Thank you for walking through the darkness with me. Until next time, remember, we're all one terrible situation away from becoming someone we swore we'd never be.